Hola, friends. How are you today? Thanks for coming to join me for story time. I have a question for you to start our story time today. I'm going to turn on the flashlight of my telephone and I want you to look behind me. Here's my flashlight. Can you see the light flashing? And I'm going to shine it on the wall behind me and put my hand up. Can you see me? Can you see that the black shape of my hand behind me? Can you see it? It gets little and big. If I go far away from the light, it's little, but when I go close to the light, it's big. Can you see my fingers wiggling? You can tell it's the shadow of a hand because it's the shape of a hand. I have a story I would like to share with you today about shadows. The title of our story is The Biggest Shadow in the Zoo. Can you tell which animal we're going to read about? This is an elephant. And that's why it's the biggest shadow because elephants are really the biggest animal in the zoo, so they must have the biggest shadow. Our story is written and illustrated by the same person. His name is Jack Bent. So, as I read today, I'm going to stop every once in a while and ask you questions that have to do with the story and the shadows. So, open up those listening ears and let's get started. The biggest shadow in the zoo. Goober was an elephant who lived at the zoo. Goober was very special. At least he thought he was special. He looked special. All of the other animals lived in cages or behind bars. Goober lived on an island with a moat all around it. But that wasn't why Goober thought he was special. Boys and girls, do you see this water? It goes all the way around the little island where Goober lives. That's called a moat. You might have seen a picture of a castle, and that's where you might have seen a moat before. There was a bridge over the moat with a sign on it. The sign said, "Elephant rides, 10 cents, 2 times a day, in the morning and in the afternoon." A box was strapped on Goober's back. Children sat in the box, and Goober gave them a ride. The children loved Goober and fed him peanuts. But that wasn't why Goober thought he was special. There's a good picture of the moat. You see the water? That helps Goober to know where he needs to stay. From his island, Goober could see most of the other animals. They were all sizes, big and small, and in between. And they were all shapes, fat and thin, and some very strange. Goober noticed that each animal had a shadow, and the shadow was big or small, or fat or thin, just like the animal. Giraffes are tall, so the giraffe's shadow is tall. A mouse is teeny tiny, so a mouse's shadow is teeny tiny. Hmm, interesting. Goober noticed something else. His shadow was the biggest shadow in the whole zoo. And that was the reason that Goober thought he was special. Goober was very fond of his shadow, and his shadow seemed fond of Goober. They were always together. They were very good friends. Do you see his shadow there on the wall? Kind of like when I made my shadow on the wall behind me. One day, Goober was catching peanuts that the children were throwing to him. His shadow was with him, as usual. When Goober swung his trunk to catch a peanut, his shadow swung its trunk and pretended to catch a peanut too. Goober forgot to watch where he was going and got so close to the moat that he almost fell in. His shadow did. His shadow is in the moat. When Goober leaned over the edge of the moat, he could see his shadow down at the bottom. Goober was quite upset. He was afraid his shadow had gotten hurt in the fall. So Goober is looking over into the moat, and at the bottom of the water, he sees that his shadow is there. Goober stood very still and watched his shadow for several minutes. It didn't move. Hmm, Goober didn't move, and the shadow didn't move. That's interesting. Let's take a look at that. Here's my light again. You can't have a shadow without a light. Watch what happens when I turn it off. There's my hand. Can you see my shadow back there? No. In order to make a shadow, you have to have a light. There it is. So there's my light, and there's my shadow. There it is. Now, when I move my hand, my shadow moves. But when I keep my hand still, the shadow stays still. Oh, so that's why his shadow was staying still. Goober stayed still, so the shadow stayed still. It's dead, thought Goober. But how could such a little fall kill it? My shadow is tough. I've stepped on it lots of times and it didn't hurt it. I don't understand. And he shook his head. And the shadow shook its head. Oh, it's all right. Goober felt much better. But his shadow was still at the bottom of the moat, and Goober couldn't get it out. Hmm, I don't know. How will Goober get his shadow out? Soon it was time for the afternoon elephant ride. Goober's trainers strapped the box onto his back. Come on, Goober, they said. But Goober didn't move. He and his shadow had always been together, and Goober couldn't leave it now when it was in trouble. Remember, it's at the bottom. See his face? He's, no, I'm not going to move. The trainers pushed and pulled. They scolded and coaxed, but Goober refused to move. So they unstrapped the box and told the children there wouldn't be any elephant rides today because Goober wasn't feeling well. Goober wasn't really sick. He just didn't want to leave his shadow. The animal doctor, the veterinarian, came, but he couldn't find anything wrong with Goober. Oh, it's probably just something he ate, said the doctor. I'll check him again in the morning. Night came. Goober couldn't see his shadow anymore, but he stayed to keep it company. Ah, remember what we said? It's nighttime. It's rainy and it's dark. You can't have a shadow if you don't have some kind of light, like I used my flashlight on my phone, remember? Hmm. So Goober doesn't know. He thinks that his shadow is gone. Rain started to fall, and then there was a flash of lightning. By the light of the lightning, Goober could see that his shadow was still at the bottom of the moat. He saw something else too. The water in the moat was getting deeper. Goober didn't know if his shadow could swim. Goober worried and wished that the night would end. Hmm. Do you think Goober's shadow can swim? Do you think shadows need to swim? Do you think it will drown? Hmm. I don't think so. I don't think a shadow can breathe or is alive. It's just that shape. The rain stopped by morning, but the sky was still covered with thick clouds and it hid the sun. Goober looked over the edge of the moat. The water was almost to the tippity top, and Goober's shadow was nowhere to be seen. Why couldn't he see his shadow? What was covering the sunlight? The clouds, yes. And without some kind of light, there will be no shadow. Oh, it drowned, thought Goober. I'll never see my shadow again. Oh, look, he's so sad. Poor Goober. Goober walked slowly and sadly towards his elephant house. He looked back, hoping to see his shadow following him, but it wasn't there. He felt like crying. Why isn't his shadow there? What's hiding behind the clouds? The sunlight. Goober went inside his dark house. He wanted to be left alone, so he tried to hide in the corner. Feeling better this morning? Said the veterinarian's voice. The doctor lit a lantern so he could see Goober. And Goober saw something that made his heart leap for joy. What does he see, boys and girls? There in the corner, the very corner Goober was facing, was his shadow, as big as ever. Being in the water all night hadn't even shrunk it. There it is, boys and girls. Why did his shadow come back? Not because it was stuck in the moat, because the veterinarian put or brought some light. And as soon as there was light again, there was the shadow. Goober didn't know how long his shadow had been in the elephant house or how it even got there, but it didn't matter to him. They were together again, and that was the most important thing. Well, well, said the doctor to Goober. I don't know what was the trouble yesterday, but there's nothing wrong with you now. He gave Goober a pat, turned off the light, and went to check on the other animals. Look at how happy Goober is feeling. Without the light from the lantern, Goober couldn't see his shadow anymore, but he knew it was there, safe and sound. Goober was very happy. He ate a good breakfast and had a nice nap. It was a long night staying awake. When it was time for the morning elephant ride, Goober's trainers led him outside and strapped the box on his back. The clouds had gone away. The sun was shining brightly. Goober looked down at the ground, and what did he see? His shadow. And he smiled happily. The children got their dimes worth. Goober gave them an extra long ride because he felt so good. But he was very, very careful not to go anywhere near the moat, and his shadow always stayed close by his side. The end. Hmm. I enjoyed that story, boys and girls. Now, here's your challenge. I want you to go outside. I don't want you to stay in the house. It's supposed to be a beautiful day today. Get outside. Go find your shadow. See what kind of things you can make your shadow do. Remember, when I had my shadow, I could make it big and little. Do you remember when I did that? I'm going to turn my flashlight on again. There's my light. And there's my shadow. I can make my shadow smaller. I can make my shadow bigger. I can make my shadow move and stay still. There it is, it's still. I want you to go outside today and play with your shadow like Cooper did. Go out and have some fun. Okay? So that's your challenge for today. Go outside and play with your shadow. All right, then. Until we see each other next time. Love you. Bye.